So here I'm just going to continue working on our features a little bit. Like I said, I have a little bit of that graphite still peeking through, so I can wet my brush and I can sort of maybe take a little bit of watery gesso and sort of smear that around a little bit to create some shadows and depth. For some reason, this isn't actually smearing around, as some of my gesso's not necessarily water soluble, but it seems to move a lot. This really isn't, so I can go back in and mess with that later. I want to put the highlight, when you're painting a face, it's really good to keep in mind that wherever your face protrudes is the part that is in highlight. So like your eyeballs are rounded, so the very top of your eyelid, the very outermost rounded part, is the one that's going to fall in the, or have the most amount of highlight. And the corners where it goes in and is recessed is going to be fall more in shadow. The same with your nose. The tip of your nose is the furthest point out, so it is highlighted the most, so you may want to make that the brightest spot. Same with your chin. Your chin protrudes more, it is more highlighted. So every place that is the most rounded, the most part protruding, is the part that is the brightest and whitest. So that is how I approach my painting of my faces, especially a moon face, because it would be very round, right? So you can kind of keep that in mind as you're painting. Also, if you want to Google or, look up different faces, different happy faces, sad faces, just look at pictures of people. You can give your moon a little more personality. This one is directly just from my imagination, and I try to not really make any of my faces look exactly alike, although sometimes I do take a face that I've painted, a moon face, and I'll look at it in order to create another, basically copy myself, although it never really ends up looking like another one. It always has its own personality. So here I am going to now give her the tiniest little bit of highlights in the eyes. That's the twinkle in the eye. It makes a really big difference. And then I will take a little bit of very watery, this is where I do want to really wet my brush and use a lot of watery paint, and I'm going to start giving her a little bit of shadows. So again, you want to think about where your shadows fall, definitely under the nose, and definitely in the corners of the eyes, up in the creases of your eyes. And you don't have to use blue. Of course, you could use any color. You could use purples, grays, whatever you want. Right up under your bottom lip, there's usually a little divot with a shadow. And definitely where the sides of your face go back. And then of course your cheeks and your cheekbones, up underneath your cheekbones. Again, I'm using a really watery paint, and you can also use your finger to sort of facilitate that, or if not, my finger had like other colors on it, which wasn't real great because I didn't want her cheeks to be yellow. So let me pull that back off. And a lot of times I use, I am guilty, I love neon pink, and so a lot of times I will use a little bit of neon pink and give her some actual cheeks. Not like that, but I'm gonna go ahead and water it down. And even, you can pull it back again with a baby wipe, or using a clean finger. And here is where you just want to keep, you know, playing until you feel content, until you feel like she, you know, says that she's complete. I'm pretty happy with her already. I feel like I could pretty much stop and be content with her. And so for the sake actually of our video, I think I am going to do that. But I do want to take a little bit more, maybe some yellow, I think, just the tiniest bit, and give her a little bit of a glow. Again, if I don't like it, if that feels like too much, I can pull it back. I think that this area needs a little bit more blue, so I'm going to go back in with my original manganese blue and deepen that just a little bit. Okay, if there's anything you don't like here, I see a lot of like little brush strokes. Maybe I don't really like that, so I can go back in. I could wipe gently with a baby wipe and still probably pull some of that color off. I could layer a little bit more. The other thing that you can do is you can take like a Neo color, it's a watercolor crayon, or you can also take like a China marker, a white China marker, and you can make some more marks right on your, now you have to keep in mind though, with this is water soluble. So if I do any other rubbing or any other painting, this can wipe easily, or, you know, definitely activate and come off. But I like the little scratchy lines that it gives. If I use my China marker, it's a little harder, but it also is, it won't really move, but this is softer and I like it better. So you can go around some of your planets, you can go around your moon and give her a little bit of extra moony rays. And the other thing that's really good is to take a little bit of white gesso, okay, and then I'm going to use, I have here from RubberMoon a red rubber palette. So I like to use this a lot of times as a little paint palette, and I will just take some gesso, or you can use acrylic paint, but I want gesso because I want a nice white, and I'll just smooth this out. You can use a brush or you can use your finger, and I'm going to use this as a stamp pad, okay? And I got a little bit too much, so I need to really thin that out. Obviously you're gonna have to work fast because it will dry, but then I can take like my star stamp, or maybe like the splatter stamp, and I can use this as an ink pad basically, and then I can just get a little bit of paint splattered on my painting, and not only does that brighten it up a little bit, but it sort of helps to add another layer of texture and sort of make some of those lines that maybe I didn't like sort of recess to the back. Does that make sense? So again, whenever you use paint or gesso in your stamps, you want to clean your stamp off right away. And the other thing you can do again is, if you feel like it's a little bit too many, too much dots or texture, you can pull some of that back. or if I had accidentally stamped in an area that I didn't want to stamp, you know, you can definitely wipe it off pretty quickly. The last few little finesses that I'd like to do, and oh, also I do want to mention that you want to wipe off your red rubber palette right away. Otherwise, if the paint dries on there, it's, you know, you can get it off with a lot of scrubbing, but it's easier if you just clean it right away. So my final little touches that I want to do, I want to go back to some of my blues, some of my original paint, either the manganese blue or the indigo. And here I'm just going to go in some of these details. It will help like my little star stand out a little bit better. You can also take your Neocolor crayon again and sort of make those rings around that star stand out. You can, and there's lots of other colors, they work great on here too. I see that I would like to deepen some of the color up in this little planet here. So this is all just small detail stuff that you can play around with and you know, have fun experimenting with. So I think when you experiment this way and when you layer these kind of colors, you get some really unexpected little delights. A lot of times I know that for me, I never thought of like mixing like a magenta color with a green color, but kind of by accident that happened right on my painting, and then I really loved it. So, you know, just experiment with some of your color choices, and I think you'll end up being pleasantly surprised. One of the things too is that you just want to make sure you know, that your values, I feel like I am happy with the way all of this looks, but then my moon is still quite bright, which is good, but at the same time I feel like she just needs a little bit more subtle shading. So again, with a really watery brush, and again, if you don't like it, you can go back in and pull color out. But I kind of want to deepen some of these recessed areas. Not too much. I'm going to go in now with just a really wet, clean brush and maybe pull some of that back out. Working with the acrylics this way, I think, is one reason a lot of people will ask me if it's watercolor or if I use watercolor, and that's just because I often work with a lot of wet, watery acrylics. And if you love to paint as much as I do, then you already know that you can go in and continue to build if you want, but then you also, you know, it's nice to sort of know when you feel you should stop. So my next and final steps will be to go ahead and finish off these edges, and to do that I'm just going to take a little bit of my darker shades of blue, maybe a little bit more indigo or whatever, it doesn't matter. You can use some of your magenta, or you can mix and make the edges sort of just an extension of the front, which makes it look nice when it's hanging on the wall. And especially if you have like a deeper cradle panel, then a lot of times I will paint my edges to again just be an extension of the piece. So a lot of times I'll even take and stamp stars or draw circles or whatever if I have a deeper cradle. So like, for example, here, maybe I want to take some of that neon pink and rub it in the edges just a little bit. Oops, if I don't drop it. But you know, you don't have to, but I always just think it's nice if your edges are finished. Okay, so I will let all that dry. Now keeping in mind that once your paint is completely set up, you can varnish this. You can use like a spray lacquer, whatever that you generally like to finish your paintings with. You can do here. I decided to rub in a little bit more white gesso because I'm feeling like some of that wood icing is actually showing through, which is fine. It's just giving a little bit of a yellow cast, but I think I want to finish it off just a little bit more. And that's what will happen as you begin to finish up. You'll kind of see where you feel like you want to add a little bit more finishing touches. So I'm pretty sure that I'm going to put a tiny bit of dark right in this line here. But other than that, I am feeling pretty good about this, and I'm feeling like she's done. So my final thing will be to sign my painting, and you can do that a couple different ways. Obviously you can use paint. You can, a lot of times on these smaller ones, I'll leave myself a little blank area and use a Sharpie marker. But I feel like right here would be a great place for my signature. So I think I'm going to go ahead and paint my signature on here using just a little bit of white paint. And then I will go ahead and varnish it. I use a spray varnish called Kamar varnish by Krylon. But again, as long as you let it dry really well, you can use a brush on from like Golden or Liquitex or whatever. Any water-based varnish should work, and it will protect it, and it'll be ready to hang. Thanks so much for watching. I have more moons coming your way.